because look at that. There he is, the president and the first lady.
How are you? Good to see you. Congratulations. So nice to see you. How are you? I'm doing very well. Thank you. Look beautiful. We got the official picture. So now we'll get used to the protocol. You go right here. Melania, you're going to go on the other side. No, hold on a second. We will take care of the protocol. Now, I'm always on the line. Oh, certainly will. How was church?
All right, so that was funny. Just getting a chance to watch that. President Obama said something about protocol because the Trumps brought a welcome gift,
Right.
to their little get-together with the president and the first lady. And they weren't quite sure, you got to have the traditional four-shot picture. They weren't quite sure where the president was supposed to go. The president turned around and almost looked like he was going to hand it to one of the Marines. But, of course, they're standing at attention. And because you only have the four of them and the Marines right there, it was just a question mark for a few seconds as to where that gift was going to go. Because I don't think anybody thought, well, they were going to stand there, holding the president. So it looks like he just kind of walked back into the entryway there at the White House, where no doubt there were aides that were there ready to stand by. The thing that is so cool about this day, and the fact that you guys get to share this with us online here on News Now, either through our YouTube channel or a lot of people just grab the app, the Fox 10 Phoenix app. You put it on your phone, and you can carry us around all day long on your phone, the live, uninterrupted coverage. But, we're going to capture everything live and raw and unedited as it happens. Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago, when President Obama started walking down the portico there, you can see the photographer literally picked up his camera, and the next thing you knew, it looked like it was pointing toward the ground because it's just a live feed, and we're going to have that for you all morning long. And that was another instance right there of nobody quite sure exactly what to do for a few seconds until they figured out, hey, somebody take care of this gift so we can get our traditional picture in, and then we'll go into the White House and we'll have our visit. They've got the tea all set to go. And now we're at the Capitol, where these live images are coming in from. We've got a cool shot from the White House and a cool shot from the Capitol all going on at the same time.
It's such a historic day, Ron. I've been getting a number of tweets from viewers that are talking about how excited they are to be watching this historic day with us, Ron.
Yes.
People tuning in from all over the world. We just witnessed that historic moment here on News Now where the Trumps arrived to the White House. They were greeted by the Obamas, and now they're going to ride together.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to read the coolest tweet that just came in. This is from Paula Johnson, who says, "I'll be streaming this live in my classroom today." How cool is that?
Wow.
So we're honored. We're honored, Miss Johnson or Mrs. Johnson, that you're going to take our feed and present it to your students. We hope that when things really get going, that maybe you can feed us some questions or reactions from your students in the classroom.
That's a good idea.
And we will share our thoughts interactively here on our streaming service. That was the other point I was going to try to make, Samia, is we can be as interactive. It's all commercial free. It's all live, raw feeds through News Now, our streaming news service out of Phoenix, Arizona, out of Fox 10 Phoenix. We can be completely interactive. So that's so cool, Paula, that you're doing that, and give us the feedback of your students. Ralph Crane is saying this is history in the making. And I did just want to answer the question from Bradley Trude from earlier. What'll be the President Obama's effect after he leaves the White House? You know, I think for a long time, a lot of people assumed that when his time in Washington was over, he would be moving back to his hometown of Chicago. There he could be in touch with the people who are going to be building his presidential library.
Right.
And it's not like, say, when Bill Clinton left office, and you're leaving Washington to go to a smaller town like Little Rock, Arkansas.
Right.
You're still going to one of the major cities in the world of Chicago. But for whatever reason, over the course of the last several months, it became clear that President Obama has no intention of leaving Washington, D.C. They've already got a house all lined up. And it is going to be one of the great stories politically of this year to see how engaged he becomes.
Look who's there.
Laura
I
Bush.
knew it. I was pretty sure.
Oh, look
It
at
was
that.
the former First Lady. There he is.
See, because here's George W. Bush, who decided to really step back from the
Right.
national stage. He did not engage in any sort of critical role or criticizing role of President Obama during his 8 years in office. They talk about this being the most exclusive club in the world. You know, the handful of people who are still alive who has served as President of the United States. And he has not played any type of critical role. President Obama gave us the heads up day before yesterday that if he sees things that he wants to comment on, he's going to.
Right. He's not going to hold back.
And that will be unusual. So we have, for the first time, a man with no political experience becoming president.
Mm-hmm.
He's a business leader in this country, not a political leader. So that's unusual. Now we're going to have a president-elect who apparently is going to come forward and feel free to criticize in areas where he thinks it's justified. So things are constantly changing. We're seeing new things that have never happened before. I actually, if I had to answer that, if you had to pin me down, I would say that President Obama will not criticize as much as some people might think. And I'll tell you why.
Why is that?
I think it would lose its punch after a while. I think that he's going to watch and wait and see, and there'll be certain things. One of them is DACA.
Right.
For the Dreamers, the Deferred Action Enforcement Program that allowed people who came here as children, who were in the country illegally, to stay in the United States. I think if President Obama, or if President Trump were to issue an executive order rescinding that today, I mean this afternoon,
Right.
that would be something that President Obama would probably, President Obama would probably criticize. Now, here's part of the aspect of the day. President Obama and First Lady Michelle, do you know where they're heading right after all of this is over?
Of course I know where they're heading.
There you go.
They're heading to my home state,
Yes,
California. They're
exactly.
heading over to Palm Springs, which doesn't surprise me,
Mm-hmm.
considering all the rumors out there that suggest that that President Obama will eventually enter the tech field or
Yes.
launch a tech media company. I mean,
Right.
both of those industries,
Yeah.
really the entertainment industry and the tech industry, headquartered, at least here in the United States, in California.
Sure. You know, it's so interesting to see people who leave government service. What role do they want to play? This is a decision he's going to have to make.
Right.
Do you continue to, insert yourself into the political discourse, Or do you take your resume? You know, you've got to brush it up a little bit.
Right.
You know, maybe make a
Apply
couple of
for some
adjustments,
jobs.
right? You know, I don't know if you still have to do the online thing, you know,
Right.
but anyway. Or do you take your resume and say, you know, in reality right now, I could do just about any dream job in the world, because who's not going to hire the president?
Well, and what's a bigger dream job than being president of the United States, though?
Well, okay, so for example, do you think that when Condoleezza Rice left as Secretary of State and talked about how she wanted to be, remember, she loves football, she wanted to be the next NFL commissioner? I think she looked at it and said, that would be a cooler job than even being Secretary of State.
Right, there are definitely some cool jobs, especially in the realms of sports and entertainment. They're more fun,
Yes.
less pressure,
Yeah.
less people hate you. You know?
Right.
I mean, there are definitely some jobs out there. Sure, if President Obama was like, you know what, I want to run Fox Studios.
Sure.
Is that a possibility?
Who knows how that would work?
Do you think he'll be out in Century City in Southern California at the Fox lot where all the TV shows tape?
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. When you're already the leader of the free world and everybody's been at your beck and call. Oh, here are more live pictures coming in from there along Capitol Hill. Here come the Trumps.
Move us out of the way.
Mm-hmm. They've already arrived there at the Capitol.
An exciting day here on News Now. We appreciate everyone tuning in.
Okay, so they're going to switch in and out a lot now for the pictures inside the Capitol and outside the Capitol. That's the focus. I do have to say, from watching our coverage 4 years ago and 8 years ago, all of our sources, all of our feeds, they do a really good job of going back and forth and showing us exactly what's going on at every moment from every angle. And you can see some of the power brokers here along with the Secret Service.
Thanks.
Walking through the halls of Congress.
What? Well, you know, everybody's got it.
Live picture now from Capitol Hill. Hey, here's one of the things. So again, the difference between what we're able to do and others is that we can interact with you guys. Here's Stephen Murphy, who says, "Hey, former Phoenician watching in St. Louis. Good to see a familiar face. Thanks for the coverage." We love getting your feedback, you guys, and we are happy to answer your questions as well. Let me see here. So here's Abby, who 6 minutes ago tweeted to me and says, "Yo, Ron Hoon, Fox 10. My AP U.S. History class wants you to mention us because we're streaming you right now in Cookeville, Tennessee."
Wow. AP U.S. History?
Yes, that's Abby. So
This
I hope
is the appropriate, that's actually the appropriate class to be watching this.
yes, especially AP. Right, so you guys are the best of the best when it comes to history. I hope we have a bunch of future history teachers and history professors. Now what I have to do, Abby, is go over to Google Maps and just tell you that Tennessee is one of the most beautiful states. Every time I go there, I find myself more and more in love with Tennessee. I just, in this last year, went to Chattanooga and found it to be one of the most fascinating, beautiful, and historic cities. And from there, actually, I think I might have driven right through Cookeville, now that I think about it, yeah, because we went up to Kentucky. So shout out to Cookeville, Tennessee, and the AP History class. We are really glad that you guys are watching us. And if you want to tweet a few questions our way, you can challenge us with your history knowledge and your love of politics, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. This is one of the coolest aspects of what we're doing, is that we are able to talk to students who really truly appreciate that you are watching history unfold, and you'll probably remember this very day for the rest of your lives. The fact that you were a senior or a junior, you were in an AP history class, and you got to interact with us as we all watch these live pictures unfold. So anything we can do to help you guys, let us know. We got 36,000 people watching from all around the world.
I'm sure that number would increase. Viewers, if you like what you're watching, make sure to share our stream on your Facebook, on your Twitter, whatever social media you have. Maybe just text it to your friends.
Yeah.
We encourage you to bring in your friends, join us for this historic moment as Donald Trump is inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States. Yes, we just saw Kellyanne Conway there on the screen.
Yeah, people, I think she's going to get a few comments on her outfit today. It's very sort of neo-patriotic, right? It's kind of new version patriotic. It almost had that look of literally going back to the days of the American Revolution. I thought that was a pretty cool choice on her part.
And Scorpion, I just want to read this viewer comment. Good morning. I'm watching your stream from Ottawa, Ontario. So we have some
nice.
Canadians watching from across the border. People tuning in from all over the world to watch this Inauguration Day coverage. That's right. Donald Trump inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States. We are just 2 hours away from the official swearing-in ceremony. It's all happening here, guys. We appreciate all of you tuning in. Ron,
yes.
I still can't believe this day is finally here. We have been covering politics since April of 2015. We've been covering Donald Trump since June of 2015.
Right.
We carried it for you here on News Now when Donald Trump made his big announcement from Trump Tower that he would be running for President of the United States. And back then, a lot of people didn't expect that he would be inaugurated come January 20th, 2017. A lot of people didn't think he was going to stay in the game, that he was just doing this for publicity. And once they realized the kind of support he was getting, there were still a lot of people that, despite the fact that Trump was getting support, believed that he wouldn't become the Republican nominee.
Well, I think that I ran across an article yesterday, and it was from Associated Press, that said that Donald Trump, some people remember when he was in the Czech Republic in 1996, that he told people he would someday be the President of the United States.
Wow.
That was 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so...
if you believe it, you can achieve it.
Yes.
There's the lesson there.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently this has been a dream of his for a very long time. How far back does it stretch? Who knows? But how many little kids don't grow up in this country thinking, maybe someday I could be the person in charge. I could be the next president of the United States. Hillary Clinton, it turns out, was not meant to be that she was going to be our first female president. But that, I think, is probably going to happen pretty soon as these election cycles unfold. So boy or girl, man or woman, it's just cool to think about, when did that dream start for each? Actually, that would be a great book. If some historian, maybe it's you guys in the AP history class in Cookeville, Tennessee, if somebody sat down with each of the still living presidents and said, just tell me about the dream. Don't tell me about the campaign. Don't tell me about the last 2 years of raising money, all those kinds of things. Tell me about the day that you were in a political class and you thought I could do this when you were 14 years old.
That could be me.
Could it?
No, I'm saying that's the thought that they had.
Yes, that could be me. Donald Trump is going to have 2 Bibles today. One is the Bible that belonged to Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
The other Bible was one that my understanding was given to him by his mom when he was 9 years old, after he completed a Sunday school class there in suburban New York. I think it was a Presbyterian church. And he, so it's so cool that he wants to connect with that part of his past as a 9-year-old. Here comes Kellyanne again. Kellyanne Conway. One of the most powerful political names in the country today.
Right. A lot of people credit her as the person who really turned Donald Trump's campaign around, really
Sure.
shifted his message,
Yeah.
toned him down a bit,
Right.
and really made him more appealing to people that were maybe on the fence
Mm-hmm.
regarding whether they would vote for him or not.
Yeah. I mean, those final weeks of the campaign, it appeared that it really was brilliantly run. And the multi-state strategy to go out there and win Pennsylvania and to win Michigan. Because remember, we're literally in the last hours of the campaign. And then candidate Donald Trump goes out to Michigan to stress one more time, you're looking at a state that has seen so many jobs lost.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna bring them back. And that message played so powerfully in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. Those two states really swung it his way. I'm gonna look for a few more tweets here.
I'm getting a ton of tweets from all over the world. It seems like everyone wants their country or their state to get a shout out. We have Mercy Lynn watching from Kenya.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Lily Valecki tweeting, watching live coverage of the inauguration from Sydney, Australia at 2 a.m.
Oh, way to go, Sydney.
Wow, and Colby Richard watching live in Coach Cox's world history class at Airline High School in Louisiana.
Oh, that is just so great.
So again, we want to thank all of you guys tuning in, not only here in Arizona, but all across the country and all across the world for the historic moment. We know that maybe not everyone tuning in is a Donald Trump supporter,
Right.
but we know that all of you are here to watch a historic moment.
All right, so it's so cool that we're communicating with the kids in this one AP class in Cookeville, Tennessee. I just looked it up. Now I remember.
You're really attached to this class in Tennessee.
Now I remember because I left Chattanooga, drove up that highway, went through Sparta, and actually stopped and got gas at the Shell station in Cookeville, right where Jefferson Avenue crosses underneath the I-40 on the north side of the freeway. So I love Tennessee. Let's see what they're saying here. Let me zip over to the Twitter page and see. Wow.
right, guys. Again, Ron, Hoon, and I joining you to cover this historic moment.
Boy, this is historic because look who we just saw there.
Ah, Mr. John Boehner
John
himself.
Boehner, Mr. Boehner returns to Washington. The guy known as maybe one of the most emotional members to ever serve in the House of Representatives. I mean, and there's Newt Gingrich with his wife Callista. You know, when you think about his time during the Clinton era, it really is cool to see. And, you know, it is one of the stories here in the U.S. that there are several members of Congress who are boycotting, which, you know, is disappointing to see that you're opting not to be there for the day that is part of history. Mm-hmm. I do think there are so many ways that you can protest, and just not being part of it, you know, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of people who think, well, that's exactly the move. But if you could be a part of history, it seems to me that you would want to be a part of history.
Right.
And so, you know, we watch these feeds come in, and we watch people who were once at the pinnacle of power, who have returned to everyday citizenship.
That's John Boehner.
And there's John Boehner, for example. You know, and yeah, a lot of them keep dipping their toe in the political waters. But it is just, it's so cool to see Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. He's in his 90s. She's about 90. They're both in good enough health that they're able to be there. George H.W. Bush and his wife Barbara are both in the hospital.
There's Newt Gingrich.
Yep. But it's in many ways, it's also a homecoming. It's a chance for people of all different political persuasions, because, you know, you've got John Boehner and Newt Gingrich on one side, and you've got Joe Biden and President Obama and other leaders of the Democratic Party that are all going to be on the same stage.
Right. Well, you have the Obamas and the Trumps obviously riding together
Yep.
to this inauguration. We know that the Obamas actually hosted a tea and coffee reception at the White House for the Trumps upon their arrival.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of these are traditions that have existed for a very long time. To me, if you were going to say, well, what is the coolest of all the traditions? I think even better than having tea at the White House.
I'm not going to reject tea. There's nothing cooler than having tea at the White House. I love tea and I love cool things.
Yes,
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I'm going to put even in a bigger category. I'm going to put the fact that they ride together
Right.
in one vehicle straight down Pennsylvania Avenue with their wives, and they head to the Capitol. That is a tradition that I believe started when Andrew Jackson handed the presidency off to Martin Van Buren.
Wow.
They were both in the same party, but politically, Andrew Jackson was old hickory, you know, and he came from the wilds of Tennessee. And Martin Van Buren was one of the most well-known political operatives of his time coming out of New York. Mm-hmm. You know, and they forged this friendship. And so that's where it all began, where they rode together. Of course, in those days, it would be horse and carriage, you know, and now it's in the presidential limousines. But it's just so cool that happens. When you think about some of the, we were talking a little bit earlier about how Herbert Hoover probably didn't want to get in that car with FDR. They hated each other. Hoover especially hated FDR. But they got in the vehicle and they rode together. Who knows? Maybe they didn't say two words to each other.
Right.
Maybe they both sullenly looked out the windows. Who knows?
They just did it for show.
But the simple fact is, with a few dozen exceptions of certain people on Capitol Hill who are boycotting, the vast majority of people of both political persuasions are participating in this peaceful transition of power.
And I do want to reiterate that what makes News Now a really unique stream is its interactivity. I know a lot of you guys tweeting about where you're watching. I want to make this more informative for the viewers. So if you are going to tweet us, I want you to tweet us what you liked about President Obama and what you're excited for with regards to President-elect Trump.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to hear
That's a
your
great way to
thoughts,
do it.
what you're looking forward to, your reflection on the last 8 years. So if you were an Obama supporter, let us know what you loved about him most. And if you're a Trump
Okay.
supporter, let us know what you're most looking forward to seeing from Trump in the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So tweet us. Our names are on the screen. You can find us, and we'll read your comments here on News Now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph F. Dunford Jr. and Mrs. Ellen Dunford, accompanied by the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Miguel. How are you? Good morning. How you doing?
In a little while and get in their cars.
All right, guys, as you just heard from Ron, the Trumps and Obamas will be emerging from this door in just a few minutes. So we wanted to go ahead and take this camera now for you guys so you guys can get a view from the White House. We did ask you viewers to tweet us and let us know what you liked about President Obama, what you're looking forward to with President Trump. Adaloo tweeting me, Obamacare saved my teacher's life, so Obamacare is cool in my book.
There you go. We have Sophia in Mexico City who's watching. We have an AP class in New York that's watching. India, literally all around the world. So we love to get your feedback on the Obama years and what you want to actually see Donald Trump do as president. It's a good chance for us to be interactive with you.
Right now, the Kushti live tweeting me, like Trump for his speech on battling the global elite.
Well, I think that was a big part of why his support never faltered. It was so interesting to see over the course of the campaign so many potential political heavyweights and favorites rise up in the polls and then fall.
Right.
Rise up in the polls and then fall. There's Bob Dole. Did you see that?
Oh no, I'll go ahead and take that camera.
Talk
The viewers
about a
aren't looking at
statesman.
that camera right now.
Look at Bob Dole, well into his 90s, one of the most powerful men in the United States Senate for his years serving there, and he's just arrived as the wheelchair is brought in. There's Steny Hoyer. See, now, there's one of the most prominent Democrats shaking hands with one of the most prominent Republicans. And that, I really feel, in so many ways, is why this day is so important. So, really cool to see some of that going on.
I want to read a few more comments coming in. This one coming in from Escobar Edwin. I liked about Obama that he tried to make a difference, and I'm excited that Trump will make a change in the trajectory of the United States.
Okay. We are really loving your feedback from Tokyo, from Queens, New York, which was the last president to represent New York before Donald Trump. Isn't that interesting? We've got a president who did not carry his home state.
Wait.
Oh, there we go. You're looking live at Bill and Hillary Clinton. This was one of those unique cases where it really didn't matter who won the election. They were going to represent New York State.
Either way.
Yeah. Either from Chappaqua
Speaking
or
of New York,
from Manhattan. Right?
What a fitting question.
Well, clearly the most, probably the most well-known New Yorker up till now to serve in the presidency has got to be Franklin D. Roosevelt. I mean, when you consider that that man was so popular, he was elected and then reelected 4 years later, reelected 4 years after that, and reelected a third time, a total of 4 presidencies. That, by the way, is a really cool place to go spend a day, is the Franklin D. Roosevelt Home and Museum in upstate New York on the shores of the Hudson River. We were talking earlier about when does this dream first enter, when does it first enter your head? And you got to believe for Franklin Roosevelt, it was as a young man, when he originally, his thought was he would sail great ships because he watched them going up and down the Hudson River as a boy. But at some point he got himself involved in politics. His distant relative, Teddy Roosevelt, had already been involved and had served as president. And so from New York, we see, some of the biggest political names ever. And now Donald Trump is the latest.
A couple more viewer comments. I do like this one from Mercy Lean, who tweeted, "Well, I was an absolute supporter of Obama. I liked his speeches a lot. Looking forward to a more inclusive government with Donald Trump." I do think that the country has been a bit divided. You look at how the Democrats had difficulty getting a lot done because of the conflict between the two parties.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have a more unified government because the president and Congress all run at least by the same party.
Keep in mind that Donald Trump has said that he wants to, very early on in his presidency, institute a program that liberal Democrats love. And yet he was voted into office through Republican support primarily. The polls showed not a lot of Democrats voted for him.
Well,
but he's talking about $1 trillion spending package that would improve infrastructure in this country, everything from roads and bridges and highways to airports. And he's got the support of Democrats on that. He may have to bring the Republicans around.
Well,
but at the same time, if he rescinds some of President Obama's executive orders, which is likely to happen, the Democrats won't like that at all. The Republicans will cheer him on. So he has to ply these waters.
Well, let's keep in mind
down
that Donald Trump used to be a Democrat.
Yeah,
he used to be a Democrat, then he's a Republican. I always truly believe that Donald Trump was more of an independent, and he chose to run on the Republican ticket. But I do believe that he, supports some Republican ideals, supports some Democratic ideals, and I think it might be nice to have a president that thinks from an independent point of view.
I think so too. And we would love to get your input on that. Do you guys think that President Trump will pretty much play it right down the middle, or will he adhere mostly to Republican ideals, or will he surprise us in some ways? Because he's talking about being an inclusive country. Will he surprise us in some ways with ideas that generally would be more of a democratic approach? Some of the feedback we're getting from you guys on Twitter, from Rossville, Indiana, to Goa, India, and we've got Raghavir who says, I wonder, here we are watching from India, I wonder what India-USA relations will be like from now on.
Interesting. I do want to read this comment. Dylan Grigor tweeting us from Romania saying Trump is a little rough, but he says it as he sees it, and he throws political correctness out the window. That's refreshing. And I think that was his appeal initially. That was something that a lot of people look forward to. I'm going to go ahead and take this shot now.
Ladies and gentlemen, former Vice President Dan Quayle and former Vice President Dick Cheney, accompanied by Mrs. Marilyn Quayle and Mrs. Lynn
The
Cheney.
White House 4 minutes ago, President-elect Trump, not left the White House yet. Got a good, clean feed of that. So basically, I think we are seeing the motorcade actually kind of work its way up there right toward, trying to see if that's more on Capitol Hill or more right up in front of the White House. By the way,
It kind of looks like the area outside the White House, but don't quote me on that, guys.
that would make more sense, wouldn't it? Is that Dick Cheney there? Sure. And his wife, Lynn Cheney, the former vice president, a proud Wyoming resident wearing that cowboy hat from his days there. To answer, we want to be as interactive as we can. And so to answer the question from Raghavir earlier, I actually think USA-India relations, on the one hand, will be pretty strong because Donald Trump is a businessman. And he realizes that you've got to have a great relationship with India.
1 billion people there.
Because that is as fast a rising economy as you're seeing it. I know China gets more talk.
Right.
But India, the economy of India just continues to boom. And so it's important for us to have good relations with that country. I mean, there's 1 billion people in India, much larger population-wise than our country. However, Donald Trump has made his top priority bringing jobs back to America.
And a lot of jobs end up in India.
A lot of those jobs end up in India. So I actually think the Indian economy at this point is strong enough that it could withstand the removal of some of those jobs from India coming back to the USA. And why not when you've got an economy of 1 billion people with standards of living rising there. But you could see some job losses. You could absolutely see some job losses coming out of India, as I do think one of the first things Donald Trump is going to try to push through is this tax on products that are made in other countries that are sold here.
Speaking of India, there is Nikki Haley, the South Carolina governor, and the new, or soon-to-be, U.S. ambassador to the UN. I made that transition because Nikki Haley is of Indian descent.
Yes, exactly.
And I wanted to go ahead and show you guys this feed as well as more people arrive at the inauguration. Again, we are about an hour and a half away from Donald Trump being sworn in as President of the United States.
Hey, Bobby. Hey, Chairman.
A historic moment. We appreciate everyone tuning in here on Fox News Now. Everyone joining us for this moment in history. We're going to take you back now to the White House. We are waiting for the Obamas and the Trumps to leave the White House for the inauguration. Again, that moment just minutes away. We'll carry it for you here on News Now. I do want to read a few more quotes. The question I've asked you guys, those of you tuning in, if you were a President Obama supporter, what did you value most about the last 8 years with Obama? And if you were a President-elect Trump supporter, what are you most looking forward to in the next 4 years? I want to read this comment from Gabby Weiss, commenting from Memphis, Tennessee. I am an epileptic and I am alive because of President Obama and the ACA. So for Gabby, today's inauguration is a sad day as she appreciated Obama's presidency. Meanwhile, Gerardo Rodriguez tweeting me, Trump is a man that will change the states and the world leaders for goodness. Meanwhile, Kisa tweeting me, I think we should appreciate Obama and Biden for the great memes they gave us. That's right. The bromance between President Obama and his Vice President Joe Biden is something that the internet talked about nonstop, especially in the last year. Meme after meme popping up, commenting about the relationship between Obama and Biden and the hypothetical conversations that the president and VP possibly have with each other.
Nice day today.
Good day.
Good morning. Is this good angle for you? Is this angle for you, sir? I think so.
That is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Wow. You guys may remember that name. Former head of the DNC.
Yes.
A very controversial figure.
Yeah. Not exactly beloved among Bernie Sanders faithful. You know, there are some people who still feel as though if Bernie Sanders had been nominated by the Democrats,
That he would have won.
that he would have won the
beat Trump.
election.
Well, a lot
Because
of-
in our time, in our lifetimes, I don't know that there's ever been another election cycle where people wanted to see the system changed.
They
As
wanted an outsider.
They wanted an outsider, and Bernie Sanders represented that, and Donald Trump represented that, and Hillary Clinton was about as inside politics and inside the Beltway as you can get. By the way, answering our question that we asked you as we try to be as interactive as possible from the UAE, Lures says, I actually think Donald Trump is going to go down the middle, especially when you look at the old videos of him speaking publicly. So that's one of the points that Samia, you were raising earlier,
Right.
which is, remember, he was a Democrat at one time. Then we've got James Fraser, who's watching us over in the UK, who says, do you think U.S.-UK relations, now I'm assuming you're watching us in the UK, do you think U.S.-UK relations will be improved under President Trump? See, now, I actually do, because there's never been, we haven't seen a lot of job losses from the United States going over to the UK. And so that's number one. I think it's countries where the jobs have gone to that there could be some, that there could be some tension. But I don't even think tension's the right word. Donald Trump is a negotiator. He's built an empire, multi-billion-dollar empire, on figuring out how to negotiate the best deals possible. So his whole thing is to make America great again. And I don't know that we could talk about tension with Mexico and China as much as we could talk about trying to negotiate better deals with those countries. The U.S. and the U.K., yeah, why wouldn't relations be improved? Because Donald Trump is also going to make a big part of his presidency fighting and ultimately defeating ISIS.
Are you guys okay to go on TV in a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, that is one area where the UK has, you go all the way back to the original Gulf War to remove Saddam Hussein from power. And then the fighting in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And the UK has always been one of the United States' strongest partners. And if this fight against the Islamic State takes on the proportions that some people feel it could during the Trump years, an improvement of relations between the United States and other countries would make sense, and strengthening ties with our good friends would make a lot of sense.
It's going to be an interesting next 4 years, Ron, I will say, especially coming from a media perspective. Donald Trump has just brought so many people into the political world in terms of just having interest in politics. I think there are a lot of people out there that maybe weren't interested in politics before the 2016 election. But now Donald Trump, I think because of his celebrity and his name, initially just got so many people attracted to following all of this. Now he's making headlines on a daily basis with Twitter, things like that. I mean, what are you most interested in seeing?
I just want to interrupt for half a sec.
Okay.
John McCain just walked in. On the other picture, he is going to continue to play. Oh, there's Bernie Sanders. And right before Bernie Sanders, we saw John McCain. He's going to play a powerful political role in the coming years because John McCain is thought of as a maverick.
Right.
And so he already said yesterday he still wasn't 100% sure he was going to vote for Rex Tillerson for Secretary of State. John McCain needs to be courted by the president-elect, by Donald Trump. And it is also interesting to see Bernie Sanders there because if anybody represents the opposite political viewpoint, it's Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders chose not to boycott.
Right.
Bernie Sanders did choose to be there. And important that he was, because this was a man who for a while there, if he could have picked up a couple of more primary wins, had a real shot at becoming the Democratic nominee. And could have been on that stage in a completely different position as we see more people coming down the steps there at the Capitol. One of the great things about what you're watching now, and by the way, this is News Now. We feed to you live through YouTube and on our website, which is fox10phoenix.com. We are a streaming news channel coming out of the Fox television studios in Phoenix, Arizona. And literally people watch us from all over the world. They grab the app, they put the... Hang on one quick sec. Yeah, Troy. Yeah, no, we can hear you. We've got... Okay. Yeah, we're hearing our television partners chatting with us at the same time as we watch the Supreme Court, members of the United States Supreme Court come in, one after another. And this, again, is just part of watching the political process. There's Cory Booker, the New Jersey senator that some feel might be a future presidential candidate. Do not be surprised if even by 2020 we see his name start to emerge, Samia, Cory Booker, as people are saying there needs to be a new generation of leaders within the liberal wing of presidential politics in the United States. I mean, Bernie Sanders is passionate and fiery.
But he's also in his 70s.
He's in his 70s. Hillary Clinton, at about the same age. Now, here's Elizabeth Warren, and she's a little bit younger. We see Joni Ernst there, one of the leading Republicans in the Senate. We see Bill Frist, such an interesting character. Oh, I feel like we're blocking his head, but anyway.
There we go.
There he is. Such an interesting man because of all of his years in the United States Senate representing Tennessee. We know we have a lot of folks watching in Tennessee. Our AP students watching there in Tennessee this morning in a history class, or an AP history class. But he's also a doctor. And so Obamacare, what is the future of Obamacare? And we've been getting feedback from people on Twitter this morning saying, I've seen both sides of that argument argued on our Twitter feeds this morning. I'm Ron Hoon, Fox 10, and we are reading your tweets, where one person said, Obamacare saved my life.
Right.
And somebody else said, I am so excited to see Obamacare go by the wayside. Because a lot of smaller business people have felt like it's been a real burden, and just individual people who had to go into the exchange. By the way, Arizona as a state, we saw the largest increase in premiums of any of the 50 states in the United States. So it's controversial here, and we realize it's controversial where some people absolutely love it in parts of our country, and other people want to see what the replacement is going to be and are sure looking forward to it. So, Samia, you know what I think? We saw Elizabeth Warren and we saw Cory Booker and we saw Bernie Sanders.
Right.
All in the last 5 minutes. Could those be the three who battle it out
For the next 4 years?
for the Democrats 4 years from now?
You think Bernie Sanders will still be in the mix?
I think that it's very hard when you feel like you got that close.
To not try again?
To not try again. You've had your appetite whetted, and especially when you feel like you were in the right. Hey, we're getting another good look at the White House with the red carpet there and the Marine Guard standing by. We expect to see Donald Trump, President-elect, and current President Barack Obama. some people view him as a president who should be remembered for our failures in Iran. But if you go to the Carter Library and actually spend a little bit of time, your appreciation for what he did do as president of this country, and sort of the almost the humanity that he brought to the office. Here's a guy who still goes out, teaches a Sunday school class, and builds houses in low-income neighborhoods.
Right.
And who, by the way, apparently has beaten cancer. So we are seeing, this is what's so cool about what you're watching live on News Now and right here on Fox 10. Except for a few dozen people who chose to boycott. You have everybody from Bernie Sanders on the left, to
the far left,
to Newt Gingrich on the right, who are gathered together to honor as much the person and the office as the event itself, the peaceful transition of power. And there's Ruth Bader Ginsburg, obviously a Supreme Court justice. And now you can see how the podium is really filling up. And those are the seats you want to have. We saw Bill and Hillary Clinton. By the way, we saw Cory Booker, the New Jersey senator. We saw Bernie Sanders. We saw Elizabeth Warren.
We saw our own senator, John McCain, as well.
We saw John McCain, who's going to be... John McCain is only going to be more powerful in the next at least 2 years, if not longer, because he is considered a maverick. And we wait to see just what sort of a political role John McCain will play in trying to maybe bring Democrats together. So now we also have some images coming in.
Interesting. Are these protesters? Is
I
this
believe
the women's
so.
march? No, this.
Yeah, no, I think these are just some protesters who have gathered there on the streets.
Right.
Who looks like they are headed off, probably in the direction. But keep in mind, the security is so intense anywhere near the National Mall that any efforts they might try to make to get in there are going to be thwarted, because I don't think you're even going to be able to get close. The security lines were intense already at 6 o'clock this morning. There's President Carter again. When he hits 100, he needs to write a book. How I live to be 100. Because he's gonna.
Maybe it's his positivity and his optimism and his personality.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
Giving to others. Maybe that's the key to happiness, Ron.
Yeah. You know, we should point out, they did change the rules. They were at one point saying no umbrellas. And they finally changed the rules because they realized it was going to be a rainy day. We have the First Ladies emerging from the White House. You're looking live now at these images. It's Melania Trump. In many circles, as one of the most prominent and successful first ladies in our country's history, as they emerge right there, you guys, and then they really do, and within a few seconds, we should see.
Right. We appreciate everyone tuning in.
What is it, Troy? And it's an event that, for example,
All right, guys, we're going to cut away. We have another shot of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton at the inauguration.
Okay, live images coming in now as the you can see all the seats that have been set up there near the White House. That building that almost looks like the White House right there, that is not the White House. That's right next door. That's the United States Treasury Department. And those are the primo seats that you want to get for the inaugural parade. Because we have seen in previous parades, at some point, presidents decide to get out of their vehicle and walk that last part of the parade. So as we see the motorcade kind of working its way through the streets of Washington, I was in D.C. I believe it had to be January of 2005 because it was the re-election of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. And I was there, it was about a week before the inauguration. At the time, my daughter lived back in D.C. and it was so fascinating to be there and see what a party was in the planning. I mean, this is a huge party for hundreds of thousands of people. Every coffee mug, every bumper sticker, every button, every store, everything that you can imagine is so oriented toward Donald Trump and Mike Pence on this historic day. And so you're watching both the pool van, the live camera there, as the presidential motorcade with the outgoing president and the incoming president are riding together in the limousine that will soon drop them off on the steps of the United States Capitol. By the way, a Capitol that has just undergone a restoration that has beautified it and solidified it. Remember, they did have that earthquake that caused a few cracks in Washington a few years ago. And they wanted, of course, to have it all done for the 2017 day of the inauguration. I actually think that this should be a national holiday. It's really cool that we have people who are watching us in AP classes from New York to Tennessee to Indiana to Arkansas to Alabama. It's cool that teachers are doing that. But I just think it would be so great if this could be an actual national holiday so everybody could have the day off, not to go shopping, but to just watch this whole process unfold. Samia, I believe it just went past the new Trump Hotel coming down Pennsylvania Avenue. They're moving at a pretty good clip now. They sped up just a little bit. And you're exactly right. Yeah, there are a lot of people who are
How many cars are
gathered
there?
in that motorcade.
Yeah.
Gosh, it looks like close to. I mean, if you're including the law enforcement vehicles and Secret Service,
Right.
probably over a dozen. So this is our live streaming coverage of News Now. It is our streaming news service originating from the Fox Television Studios in Phoenix, Arizona, and we've got all the live feeds coming in. Look at that shot right there. The presidential motorcade working its way down. It's so cool to see Republicans and Democrats come together and to honor the day and to honor the office by people of such different political viewpoints all being together for this inauguration itself. It's also pretty fascinating from a historical perspective to think about, a lot of people feel as though our country is maybe more divided than it's been in a very, very long time. And yet, if you do have the perspective of history, if you look back at Abraham Lincoln's first inauguration in 1861, and several states of the United States had seceded from the Union simply because of him. And we were headed for the Civil War. And it was an issue that Abraham Lincoln had to deal with in the first few months of his presidency when the rebels fired on Fort Sumter. And so you had entire states. You talk about how a handful of people are boycotting today.
Right.
You had entire states that were boycotting, and a president who was simply trying to hold the Union together.
All right, let's go back to this shot, a historic moment. Once again, Donald Trump's competitor in the 2016 election.
It's nice to see some applause here. We were looking at the facial expressions of Bill and Hillary Clinton, and when he grabbed her hand as they were walking down the steps just before emerging outside here, it really had the feel of a couple that I think maybe is still stunned.
Right,
And-
they thought today
and
was
stung.
Hillary's. They thought
Yes.
today would be Hillary's day.
Correct. And it just had a feel of, hey, we're going to get through this day together. It cannot be easy for her in any sense. And frankly, I don't think maybe it's all that easy for Bill Clinton, too, because, a lot of people, the two of them included, were looking at polls in the days leading right up to the election that thought were on the verge of becoming the ultimate power couple that this country has ever seen. Instead, she loses some of those key states, not even campaigning in some of the crucial states that I think she felt were so safely in her column in those final days. And Donald Trump kind of barnstorming them. One of his quotes was, "There's Chris Christie." That's an interesting political figure.
Right.
I mean, Chris Christie, the first really big name of campaign competitors, come out and say, I'm backing Trump. And the fact that Donald Trump has not exactly extended any favors to Chris Christie in terms
Right.
of big jobs at the
That's very
federal level.
true.
But there's Chris Christie. He's on the stand as well. It'll be interesting to see
Well,
what the
similarly,
political future holds for him.
right. Similarly, Rudy Giuliani. I mean, you had Chris Christie, Rudy Giuliani on the campaign trail day in, day out, campaigning on behalf of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And a lot of people watched and assumed that if Donald Trump were elected, that these people would hold some sort of important position. Rudy Giuliani's name was thrown out there for Secretary of State. Some people thought that Chris Christie might be Attorney General, but in the end, neither one of those people got those positions.
Yeah. Here's the applause for George W. Bush and his wife, Laura. I never had the chance to meet President Bush, but I did meet the First Lady. She was here for an event out at ASU. And I had the chance to interview her that day. And she is as warm and gracious and easy to talk to as any person sort of at the pinnacle of political power that you'd ever want to meet. I loved the time I got to spend with Laura Bush. And so how cool is that we just saw two of the most prominent Democrats, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and prominent Republican like George W. Bush and his wife entering the stage within a matter of seconds of each other.
Right.
By the way, it says Inauguration Day on the screen. What we saw was, well, there you go. There's the motorcade. And President-elect Trump now, wow, Samia, 1 hour away from the swearing in, arriving there at the Capitol. And President Obama, soon to be ex-President Obama, still, I think, contemplating exactly what the future holds for him. He has indicated he will speak out, where we saw George W. Bush really never wanting to step forward to criticize President Obama. But President Obama has indicated to all of us that if he sees areas, he's still a pretty young man. Politically, he can still be quite powerful for many, many years to come. And he has decided, he and Michelle, they're going to live in Washington rather than returning to their hometown of Chicago. So what role will he play in leading the Democratic Party as they try to figure out where to go in 2018? One of the interesting commentaries, Samia, that I've heard just in the last day or so is the Democrats realize they don't have the votes to block these nominees. But they are trying to set the stage for 2018 and for laying out some groundwork to say, well, we are still politically relevant and we'll fight in areas that we want to fight, and we'll choose those spots where we want to be the strongest in terms of the party of the opposition. Look at that aerial shot.
Wow.
I actually think that might be a camera mounted on top of the Washington Monument that we just showed you there. And now we've got the first image of President-elect Trump at the Capitol. And President Obama as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the children of Vice President-elect Pence.
Thank you, sir. Good to be back. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Are you going to reverse the immigration order in the next few days?
Congratulations, sir.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay, look, Laura, we're moving.
The Trump family officially making their way
Yes.
to the inauguration stage.
You got to believe this is a pretty overwhelming moment for the Trump family. And there's Barron,
Good old Barron,
the youngest,
the youngest.
and
The one that will actually live in the White House eventually.
yes, yeah. And here comes another shot of Ivanka. You've got Eric, Tiffany, Don Jr. These have got to be some pretty cool and overwhelming moments for them.
Right.
You know, I noticed, and you probably heard our audio feed a minute ago. President Obama, gave a little wave and how's everybody doing, that kind of a thing. There's no pressure on him whatsoever. No pressure at all.
Right. I mean,
and
it's
Donald
the last
Trump,
day of
on the
school
other
for
hand,
him.
yeah, Donald Trump has got to have at least a slightly elevated heart rate
Right.
going on right now, as you are now about 55 minutes away from becoming the leader of the free world, and the heavy burden that places on you. And we have seen it time and time and time again, how much a president ages, especially during 8 years in office.
And I do want to reiterate, we have so many different cameras, so many different angles, courtesy of Fox. In the upper corner of your screen, we're getting another look at the Clintons. You have George W. Bush there, the former first ladies and presidents in attendance. Obviously, a lot of people focusing on Hillary Clinton because she did lose to Donald Trump in this election.
Yep. Yeah, and it is most likely that she is exiting the political stage. I also think it's quite likely that Joe Biden is truly exiting the political stage. President Obama, not so much. But I do think that he will have to pick and choose his spots. Otherwise, he will be seen to, if he just comes out critical of, every fourth or fifth decision that Donald Trump makes,
right,
it's going to lose its punch real quickly. But on those issues that he feels quite strongly about, he will. I just think it's probably not going to happen as much as some people might think, because he truly will have to pick and choose his spots.
Right. There's Ivanka Trump. Many people speculating that she will fulfill many of the traditional roles that a first lady will fulfill.
I liked how she said that was highly inappropriate for people to suggest that.
Well, a lot of people, because she was getting the office in the White House that was typically reserved for first ladies, it got a lot of people thinking, a lot of people talking.
Yeah.
Also, Donald Trump really trusts his daughter, Ivanka.
Yes, right.
And, he has that sort of relationship with her.
I think this family, Samia, I think you're right on. I think this family is going to be more influential because they have been over the course of the campaign, and by the way, they have been in the building up and operating of a multi-billion-dollar empire.
Right.
They have been at his side all along the way. And people say that when you reach this level of power, you just have to watch out for so many people that you really wonder what their true motives are when they approach you as president. Well, Donald Trump knows what the true motives of every member of his family are. They've been with him. He's raised them. He loves them as his own kids and their spouses. And he, I think, will rely on their input. I'm trying to think of another president in recent times who would have a family that's going to be more influential than the Trump family. I just can't think of it. It is really going to be such a fascinating time. And then, so we're talking first ladies. What about Melania Trump? What role will she play?
Right.
A lot of people said it's going to be cool to have someone, the most stylish first lady, as a professional model at one time, in terms of the clothes, in terms of the style that she's going to bring to the White House. To see how she grows into this job as First Lady of the United States. Look at that shot. Look at that. I'm always one who favors wide shots over tight shots. Although it's cool to see the smiles and the waves. And
right. And
so
you
many
can't help
people
but
happy.
notice all the Make America Great Again hats in the crowd.
Sure.
Lots of people buying that Make America Great Again merchandise during the campaign season,
Mm-hmm.
It works for them. If Donald Trump had lost, they might not have been wearing that hat out and about proudly, but,
right.
They'll be wearing it at least for the next 4 years.
Yep. And there is the image. I think it's got to be overwhelming when you first step out to see the size of this crowd. So that's a camera that's actually mounted up there toward the top of the Capitol. And you could see, although there were still a few spaces yet to fill in, the estimates are anywhere from 700,000 to 900,000 people will gather to hear Donald Trump's speech. Now, I think it's interesting to point out that from what we've been told, Donald Trump's speech will be relatively short, written by his own hand. And I think that will be a very wise move on his part, Samia, because every president knows that there is an instance of one of our elected leaders from long, long ago who gave a speech that was so long, not only were people no doubt yawning through it, he got sick from, I'm talking about William Henry Harrison, one of our earliest presidents. His speech, I believe, was close to 2 hours long. And the weather was not good. And he got sick and was dead within several weeks of his presidency. So you don't want to give, that's the benchmark of length. You do not want to give a 2-hour speech.
Right. I think Donald Trump's speech was also described as brief and short. I think that was what
20 minutes or less, right? And I think that is a great move. Listen to what William Henry Harrison said when he stepped, they didn't have microphones back then, but when he stepped up to the podium and said, "Called from a retirement which I had supposed was to continue for the residue of my life to fill the chief executive office of this great and free nation, I appear before you, fellow citizens, to take the oaths which the Constitution prescribes as a necessary qualification for the performance of his duties, and in obedience to the customs of our government, and what I believe to be your expectations, I proceed to present you a summary of the principles which will govern me in the discharge of the duties which I shall be called upon to perform." Samia, that was one sentence.
Wow.
That's a speech in some people's category. That was his first sentence, and it went on. You can, by the way, if you, because we know we've got a lot of AP history classes watching us today, you can Google and you can find every speech that every incoming president has delivered at the inaugural. And it's so cool to just see the difference in language, the flowery, almost difficult to understand language that was used in the, say, early to mid 1800s, to the more plain spokenness of the generation that we are in now and the previous generation. What will be, Samia, what will be Donald Trump's memorable moment from what we are about to see? When President Lincoln talked about appealing to the better angels of our nature, hopeful that the country would reunite, and when John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Those are moments in our memory collectively as a nation that are with us forever. Will Donald Trump have a line today that is so memorable as we prepare for the swearing in and then the speech, now about 45 minutes away? Will he have a line that is so memorable that it will be in that same category of what we heard from a JFK in 1961?
We'll have to wait and see. Like you said, we are about 46 minutes away from Donald Trump officially being sworn in. Then he will be obviously speaking and giving his inaugural remarks. Live at the Capitol, a historic moment. I do want to check in with some of our viewers. Now, earlier today, I had asked viewers if they were Obama fans, what is the one thing that you valued most about Obama's presidency? And if they were Trump supporters, what are you most looking forward to over the course of the next 4 years? We're going to get to that in a minute, but it looks like the First Lady arriving now. Speaking of the Obamas.
Kind of interesting that there's that much space in time. I mean, the president and the president-elect arrived several minutes ago, and now we finally...
I know. Well, I'm sure there's so many people greeting them, wanting to take pictures, shaking hands.
Yes, you are.
There's the formality of it all. If you see someone you're not going to ignore them.
Yep.
I do want to read this comment, though, fitting because we're looking at Michelle Obama on the screen. Renee Carbajal saying, "The Obamas represented the U.S. with class and dignity. The progression of our society is his biggest impact."
Wow. We are... Part of, I think, what is so interesting for News Now, this streaming news channel that we have, is that it's popular around the world.
Right.
Here's... So from Portugal, we hear, even though I have doubts about Trump, I think the Portugal-USA relations will remain good and positive, says Mandy. We've got Josh and Jared and Brandon watching in Kansas City, wondering how the future is going to go. From all the way in Bangalore, India, We have Ashu talking about how his sister voted for Donald Trump. And now, how about this? This is really interesting. Here's Kisa. Samia, let everybody know your Twitter handle.
Oh, at Samia Fox 10.
And I'm at Ron Hoon Fox 10. Kisa says, do you think that Donald Trump will make ID mandatory in the United States? She says, in the Czech Republic, everyone has it from the age of 15 on. Why is it such a problem in the USA? Now, that's a fascinating question.
That's interesting.
You can go choose to get a driver's license.
But you're not forced.
You're not forced to.
But I think that gives Americans that sense of independence.
It is part of what makes up our whole national culture. If you so choose to never drive a car, or you so choose to never leave the shores of this country to travel anywhere else, and you don't need to or want to get a passport, you don't have to. I think it does appeal to that sort of independent stripe of Americans.
Right.
But that's
that
a great
freedom, that concept of freedom.
It is a great question. You know, mandatory ID in, here we think of the nations in Europe and the Czech Republic. Actually pretty good friends with the United States. And what a beautiful city, Prague. And you think about the revolution that happened there in Prague, the Velvet Revolution and the bringing of freedoms to that country in 1989. And our revolution happened in 1776, so long ago. And history so fresh, I think it's so raw there in the Czech Republic. All right, so there's Joe Biden. I do think that I haven't seen any popularity polls for Joe and Jill Biden. But I think if they gave one, I think they'd be off the charts.
90% minimum. 90% minimum. Republicans, Democrats, no matter what your political affiliation is, I don't think you can deny the Biden's likability.
Yeah. Nick Shepard is watching all the way in Australia. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and we've got folks in Australia watching. Dale's been watching from the UK and says, I voted Brexit. Here's to great change in the world. And there were people, not a lot of them, Samia, but there were people after the Brexit vote, and call me a political nerd if you want to. I believe you have on certain occasions. But I watched that BBC coverage late into the night on the Brexit vote. And there were people who said, pay attention to what is happening in the UK, because just months ahead of our election, that gives you a heads up to the sort of the way the political winds are blowing. And it turned out to actually be that way. I mean, there were a lot of people in the UK who said, I'm voting for change. By the way, you got a new prime minister out of it. The very next day, David Cameron said, I'm stepping away. And we have a new president and a new political philosophy that has come from the, quote, drain the swamp attitude that Donald Trump has promised to bring to Washington, D.C.
And speaking of what Donald Trump will bring to Washington, D.C., I do want to check in with our viewers again who are tweeting us about what they look forward to most in the upcoming Trump presidency, what they loved about the Obama presidency. I want to read this comment from Anthony Fileri. The Obamas gave us all, especially minorities, a true example of a family. I pray Trump gets us term limits in Congress. Now, that's an interesting topic as well. The fact that, you can just keep running for Senate, as we've seen here in Arizona. And I do see a number of people that don't want there to be this option of just being a lifelong politician.
Yeah. That's interesting because Donald Trump would sign that bill into law. However, it has to originate from the Congress.
Right. So it
just seems so hard to visualize them
voting against themselves.
And yet it is supposed to be a citizen legislature. It was never really truly designed to become a lifetime position like it has for a lot of people. Here comes Melania Trump coming down the staircase. I just really feel as though the weightiness of the moment has just the mantle of the office as it falls upon not just the president but his entire family has got to feel so real right about now. There was some controversy over a teacher in, I believe it was Michigan, a fourth grade teacher who said he was not going to let his students watch today They could watch the festivities, but not the speech, because he was concerned about the language that Donald Trump might use. And yet here's a 4th grade class in Smith Station, Alabama, who is watching today. It's Mrs. Cook's class. And we realize we have a lot of classes, from a 4th grade class to AP history and political classes, that are watching from Tennessee to New York and all over the country. And we love the fact that we can interact with you guys. Come like us on YouTube, our YouTube channel. If you've got a minute to grab the app, you would love this, because we stream news live, uninterrupted, commercial-free, each and every day on News Now. The app, by the way, is fox10phoenix.com. And our coverage will continue. You might hear others say, okay, we'll take a quick commercial break. You're not going to hear that from us. We've got the live, raw, unedited feed coming in from D.C., multiple cameras. Melania Trump, here she comes, and look at that smile as the crowd greets her with applause.
Now, the final minutes of Barack Obama's presidency and Joe Biden's vice presidency. Again, Donald Trump being sworn in 38 minutes.
Yep. They're going to run this one right to the clock. A lot of people sometimes thought, why do we have to wait so long for this latest presidential news conference? Or for this appearance or that appearance. And George W. Bush was known for the most part of running things right on time. President Obama took a little bit more time, to prepare for some of his events. But this is an event, well, it's basically required by the Constitution. It's going to happen on this day, it's going to happen at this time, and they run everything to clockwork. And here are 2 men who developed such a friendship during their 8 years in office. Remember that Joe Biden was a presidential candidate himself at one time.
Right, and some people speculated that he'd run in 2016 as well.
You wonder.
Many people believed he would.
You wonder if he could have won that presidency.
A lot of people are saying that.
He's an insider too. And this was the year of the outside change agent.
If there was any insider that could have done it, I truly believe it was Joe Biden. Think about it. He had that blue-collar, middle-class appeal.
Yep.
He would have won those states that were traditionally Democrat that went Republican this time because they were so concerned about lost jobs. I really think that he connected with that audience. And even though he went to those areas to campaign on behalf of Hillary Clinton, sure, people showed up to watch him speak, but at the end of the day, they liked Joe, but perhaps they weren't as inclined to support Hillary Clinton.
And they're just showing us Jill. It's like they're zooming in on Jill Biden at the very moment that you're talking about the Bidens. And there they are. Joe Biden, it's all, we'll never know. But Joe Biden could very well have brought Pennsylvania back into the Democratic column. He's a kid from Scranton, PA. And he was so proud of the fact that he was from a working class neighborhood and from a blue collar town like Scranton. Here come the president and president-elect.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President-elect, Michael Richard Pence. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the President-elect, the Staff Director for the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Stacey McHatton McBride. The Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Frank Larkin. The House Sergeant-at-Arms, Paul Irving. The Chairman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Roy Blunt. Rules Committee Ranking Member and Senate Democratic Leader Charles E. Schumer. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Paul D. Ryan. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, and House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi. Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, Donald John Trump.